Hey there, this is Andrea TheoJohn, your 40-year-old bride, here to bring you the very best tips in dating, engagement, marriage, relationships in general. I am not a relationship expert, however, I'm a human being just like you, and what I really wanted to see was more content geared towards 40-year-old brides, 40-year-old dating women, because everything seems geared towards the 20-somethings, and the 40-somethings, we're a whole different experience. And we need a whole different level of content. So here I am, here to bring it for you. And I've got my first guest I'm so excited to bring to you today, talking about recovering from failed relationships, what to do, how to go about it. And so my friend here, Corrida Greene, we are both Clemson gals and sorors. We're both in the same sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, if you did not know. And she's absolutely marvelous. She's based in the Charleston area, Moncks Corner area, and is an inventor and entrepreneur in her own right. She's got several businesses under her belt, which you'll hear about soon, and you'll also see that in the show notes and in the comments below. You can find that information in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on podcast, you can also find it in the show notes area, so you can see how to connect with Miss Corrida Greene. But today we're talking about failed relationships, recovering from failed relationships. Corrida's going to tell you about where she is on her love journey right now, and so we've got so many good tips. This is going to be a series, so it has to be a series, otherwise you'd be here for 2 hours watching us. But it was so good. Just had to give you everything she's got, because she's been through a good amount of therapy herself, a good amount of counseling, as I've been through counseling, and so you just learn so much about relationships and love, and how to look at yourself introspectively and learn through all of these things. So we've got a lot of tips. Make sure you check out each and every one of these episodes, and we're going to start right now with Corrida's story about where she is on her journey of love. Let's go. Miss Corrida, so glad to have you here. Welcome to the 40-year-old bride channel. So glad to have
you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're looking gorgeous, soror, of course.
Thank you so much, soror.
Today we're talking about a topic that I think is so critical for so many people, because we all of us at some point go through a failed relationship. And so we're talking about how to recover from that. How do you recover from a failed relationship? And so tell us about some of those essentials first for everyone to know about you, just in terms of your own love situation, where you are currently. And this is July 2022. So just FYI, her situation may drastically change after all this, we hope. But yes. Tell us about where you are, so everyone knows, a little bit about your love background and where you currently are.
Absolutely. So I am moving through a divorce as we speak. So coming out of a 6-year relationship and marriage, and now coming into a space where I am newly single again. I am a mother of one who is 19. She'll be 20 in August. So still going through that transitional period as a mom, mothering now an adult versus a child, and then also coming back into the scene, if you will, being single again and rediscovering who I am today. So that's my background. Those are the essentials about where I am in my love life.
Thank you for that. And sorry again for the divorce, because I know that's hard regardless, even though I'm sure it's like the best decision for you both.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely. Sometimes it is about making the best decision for the circumstances, for the both of you, where you are in your growth journey, and the direction that you're heading in. Sometimes it's just important to step back and regroup and evolve. And it happens, it's life, and it's okay.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, it's all right, because we were going to talk about how to move on from all that. How do you even though you're kind of in the middle of it. And I have to say, I mean, your positivity and your energy is amazing
Thank
for
you.
during this process. So I only know there's great things for you beyond this. So
Your mouth to God's ears.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So I think, the first part of recovering from a failed relationship is accepting that it's actually over. You know,
Mhm.
talk to me about your process with that. And it's okay if you've not fully even accepted it yourself, but
Mm.
how have you dealt with accepting that?
Ooh, so accepting that it's over. A lot of times we don't realize there's a grieving process to ending relationships or relationships that are over. We think that the best thing to do is just to end one thing and move into another thing. But if you
Mm,
don't really face it, right, you have to be honest with yourself about what took place and then where are you now? Locate yourself. Where are you emotionally? How do you feel about the experience that's taking place? How have you grown from it? What have you learned from it? And all those things don't come about if you don't take the time to say, I acknowledge that this is over. I accept that this is over. I am at peace with where I am in my journey. And that means that part of my life has now moved to the past in my life. And
mm,
so
mhm,
it's important to acknowledge that transition. Otherwise, you will find yourself in a cycle
mhm,
and you will be repeating the same thing over and over, even if it's a different person. You'll
mhm.
repeat the same experience because you never really accepted that that experience was over. So you never really got to face what you needed to learn so that you can move into something better. So
Yes,
it's vital.
I'm exactly. I'm so glad you said, and we're going to move on to this too. I'm so glad you talked about learning. What did we learn from it? That's kind of in the next question I want to ask you. So we'll get back to that. And so talk to me about this one piece. We were a little bit talking about this before we got on our recording here. How important is it to not contact them once it's over? Like,
Oh my goodness.
it's
That
so
is the
hard, but
thing we
yes.
do. Yes. Oh my God, it's so hard. We think of all these reasons and all these things we need to talk about, whether it's something random, whether it is absolutely nothing at all, just the hey, dot, 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 there's nothing even there to discuss. But here we go, reaching out because we want to try and re-establish that connection. So it is so important for you to take time, allow yourself to separate from the experience, because if you don't separate from it, you never really allow it to be completely severed. And so it's important for that severing to take place, for you to readjust to what's now your new normal. So please, by all means, you only make yourself look desperate. You only make yourself look needy. You only make yourself look like you are not even aware of your own self-worth, like you don't have dignity, like you're not aware of your own value, or how about this, that you're not aware at all, because self-awareness is key,
Mm,
right, in any evolutionary process. You have to be aware of where you are. So that is probably the biggest thing, making sure you don't reach out and you keep your distance. That establishes that you're aware of your worth and your value, and you're prepared to walk alone if need be until the next opportunity comes along, versus trying to fight to hold on to something that is not trying to hold on to you.
mm, mm, mm. That's a whole word by itself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you said a lot of great things. I especially think that not contacting them, I think what you were alluding to is this idea of power, because I think by not contacting them, you retain a good bit of your power in that recovery process
Yes.
versus when you do contact them, then they know, "Oh, okay, well, I've got the upper hand because first
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's totally a power move. So,
It is. It's absolutely a power move. And you want to stay grounded and focused on your own progress. And I think sometimes, even if we get caught up in the power struggle, even that can go too far left if we're not careful,
mm,
because we then become focused on the power struggle, which is just another emotional exchange. And if we're not careful, even that can become a form of a trauma bond. So you don't
mm,
even want to put your energy in that piece. Put your energy entirely in rediscovering yourself and focusing on your own growth and development, identifying what went wrong. Own what you need to own. That's the biggest piece. You have to figure out, what did you contribute to the demise of this relationship? And if you can't find anything that you contributed, I really regret to inform you, you probably were the reason why it failed.
tell him
If
again for
you
the people
can,
in the
if you
back.
can, yes. You have to own what you contributed to causing it to not work out,
Mhm.
because it's never just one person. It's always both parties not being able to see eye to eye for one reason or another. And a lot of times when we come into relationships, we bring our own baggage, we bring our past experiences, we bring sometimes generational issues, and we attempt to make something work with someone without ever having resolved the issues from our past relationships, our past experiences. And also sometimes we're not even really truly aware of who we
Mhm.
are. So we want to love someone and we want them to love us, but we don't really even know who we are. So how can they love us if we don't know who they're loving? So it's about understanding the fullness of who you are. Because when you do that, now you can reinforce and reestablish your boundaries. Now you have an awareness of what will work for you and what won't work for you. And so you'll be better able to identify that in your partner, in your mate. And then it becomes more about just an emotional feeling, but a real connection. And it becomes about, how can we unite our journeys, because we're all here for something. What are you here for? What am I here for? How can I help you achieve your best self? How can you help me get to my best self? So it becomes more about the less about the romance and more about the journey when we first understand who we are. So taking that time at the end of a relationship to rediscover yourself and not let the power be what it is. Let him think whatever he wants to think. It's okay. Just
Yes, and I think
focus on you.
that's part of our issue, especially for women, but this applies to men too. But I think that's part of our issue of getting over something, and that desire to, back to our point of not contacting them, but the desire to
Yes.
do it. I think is like, we don't want that person walking away who knew us intimately enough to
Mm-hmm.
a long-term-ish relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them walking away thinking that person was a monster, or, horrible or something. Like, we want to
Mm-hmm.
prove to ourselves that it was really
It
them,
was
not me.
them and their loss, and it wasn't us.
Yeah, yeah. And truthfully, to your point, it's on both sides, and that's why it's so
Yeah.
important to learn from each of these, which is onto, I think, another important area of how do we get over and recover from a failed relationship is, just this length of time. I think a lot of people wonder, how long is this really going to take to get over it, especially if it's been a while since your last previous relationship
Mm-hmm.
before this one. So when you think about how long it takes to get over it, do you have a feeling for how long it might take? I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but what do you
Yeah. Oh, this is a meaty one. I think that I do think that the time that it takes to move forward, sometimes people put a time frame on it, but I personally believe when you get to the place where you can look at your past pain and no longer feel pain but appreciation, because you understand that it all had purpose and contributing to where you're going and your ultimate promise, that's when you know, all right, I got it. I can move forward. So that doesn't always look like a specific time frame. Sometimes it just looks like, okay, where am I at in this journey? Am I still experiencing triggers? Because then I might need a little more time. But when I get to that place where I'm truly at peace and I can see, oh my goodness, I grew in so many ways. I learned so much about myself. Oh my goodness, I made some amazing relationships. I contributed to the growth of another human being. You know, when you can see the good in it and when you can see that it contributed to a better version of you, then that's how you know enough time has passed for you to move forward in your love life. But as long as you're looking at it and you feel resentment, you feel pain, you're still carrying those bags with you, you need a little time to work through some of those things because otherwise, every relationship is going to throw on another bag. And every person you meet, you're going to expect them to carry them for you. And that's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility to work through your challenges and your issues, your obstacles with your ability to love properly.
Yeah, you said
Mhm.
something great, because I remember, I wish I could remember who said this, but I was talking to a guy who was talking about one of his guy friends,
Mhm.
like a serial dater. We were talking importance of
Mhm.
serial marriage person. Like it's like jumping back into marriage. Like he's on his fifth marriage now, and with
No.
no breath in between. There is no part of like I'm a firm big believer in either remembering or seeing who you are now. And I think you made this point too earlier, getting to know who you are now without
Mhm.
that person, because who you are now is way different than who you were by yourself with no one in your 20s.
Yes.
Um, you know, Someone in their 40s is a way different person than that person way back then. And so, yeah, thinking about that guy who was like serial marriage, serial husband,
Honey.
he was talking about how it seemed like his friend never learned from any of those relationships. I know who it was now. I can't say who he is, but this was over
I
lunch
want
one
to
day.
ask, do I know? No, I'm just kidding.
That's how South Carolina roots. So there.
Right?
But he was sharing, like he literally told his friend, and because he's like his best friend, all the women who's ever become an ex of his,
Mhm.
and they all end up talking to him, and they all tell him the same thing, and
Mm.
they all cite the same problems with the same guy. So then it becomes that is very clear that no work has ever been done, and
That's
you're just
right.
reaching because you want to be with someone
Mhm.
so bad that you just will take the next warm body that fits the bill.
Honey,
Then you're
that's
back in
willing to
love.
deal with it. Yes. And that's a real place for so many people. You
Yeah.
know, it's almost like they try and find the right fit for their issues, like do our
Mm-hmm.
issues match? And that's a horrible way.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's funny. Yes.
It's just not the best way, to step into a relationship, much less a marriage, because it's just not a great foundation. So you're absolutely right. You have to take that time to figure out what was it about you? What was the truth that you heard in the midst of the differences, the arguments, the disagreements? There's some truth in that stuff. Sometimes we don't want to own that, but there is some truth in that. And when we can hear it apart from our own emotions, then we can process it to improve. But when we listen with emotional defense at the forefront of our thoughts, of our hearing, then we never get to that place where we can actually receive what's being called out to us in order for us to grow. So it sounds like he's just comfortable. He has no desire to change. He can keep it on moving is what that's what he can do. I hope I hope he finds something that works out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's sad. I think that's why part of this question of how long does it take to get over. And I think you're exactly right. Like it just all kind of depends on so many things. And what you said about it's just really if whenever your mindset gets to the place where you can appreciate that relationship versus you still feel hurt by it in some ways. One of the things I think can help speed things along, and
Mm,
everyone has different feelings about this, but I'm a big believer in counseling. I think counseling's so helpful.
mm.
We did premarital counseling. I've had premarital counseling before my previous engagement. I thought it was great. We're doing counseling now, because it's so much
Mhm.
work. People are like, ooh, marriage, I think people think marriage and they think it's boring and it's, you're just stuck with the same old person every day and it's not such a big deal. And, people who are unhappily married really look at singles like, oh, you got it made, singles. Just live it up.
Yeah,
Look at you. They kind of want to live vicariously through the singles.
right.
Whereas the singles are like, and I know you remember these days, where the singles are like, oh, I just want to be married.
Yes.
They're like, marriage must be so great. And it's so hard out here in these streets being single.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, trust me. I'm not completely ecstatic about being single again. Like, that's definitely not how I saw things working out. Definitely was not my plan, because when you do something like this, it's supposed to be forever. Your plan is for it to be forever. So I guess I'm just more at peace with where I am in my journey, and I understand who I am, and because I understand who I am and why I am, I believe that there is still love for me. And so it's just a matter of being ready to get there. And you touched on something that, oh my goodness, is so golden: therapy. Okay.
Yes. So helpful.
Counseling. Get it and stay in it.
Stay in it. Yeah, because it's
I
work.
promise you. Yes.
Both of them are
It's
work.
so
I
good.
promise you, like being married is work and being single is work because you're dealing with everybody's feelings when you're single. This person's
Yes.
feelings and that person's feeling. You're just trying to date,
Mhm.
but not necessarily exclusively yet. So
Exactly. And so
uh,
sometimes you need help sorting through even all of that. Like, if that's your choice of lifestyle, that's a lot to sort through. So I agree completely.
yes, it's
And then
all
a
work.
lot of, yeah, so having your own counselor and you get into a relationship, there's nothing wrong with having relationship counseling, even if you're not at the point of marriage. And then definitely when you get to marriage, you want to have premarital counseling. You want that insight. You want to have someone to bring a level of awareness to this new step that you're about to take, and make you think about things the way you might not have considered them before, so that you have a better understanding of what it takes, what you're stepping into, and what it's going to take to sustain it. So, yes, I am a huge proponent of counseling. Love my therapist. Hey, girl, hey.
You should send this to her and be like, how did I do? How did I do?
Exactly. We're definitely going to talk about it.
You are definitely educating the world because I'm hearing all this. And I'm like, that's some growth. I'm just listening to all of it. Like she has gone through a lot of growth. Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am. It's definitely been a journey. And for me, it's an honor to be able to share these things, because a lot of women don't even know what steps to take. Sometimes you can just feel so lost, especially and that's for men too, when you poured yourself into a marriage, into a relationship, into building a life with someone, and then it just kind of all falls apart. You can just feel so lost, like you don't even know where to begin. And so it's important to be able to know what is the first step. And the first step is you absolutely must locate yourself. Where are you now in this whole situation? And then what have you learned? And it's just step by step, baby steps. And before you know it, you will have stepped completely out of it's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. You would have completely stepped out of the situation that really, if you weren't careful, could have buried you. You could have lost yourself completely in it.
Mm,
Yes, ma'am.
that
And
is
that's
so
what you don't want to do.
yeah, I love that piece because truthfully when you can look at relationships like that, it took me a long time through my 20s and stuff to get all this together. But
Yes, girl. What?
so much to know. So much to know. Is when you can start looking at relationships as this person came here to grow me, whether that's forever or whether that's for the next chapter of my life, however long
Right.
that may be.
Right.
They're here for a reason, and hopefully you're there for a reason for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And at a minimum, you're there to grow each other, no matter how long that is, if
No
you choose to
matter.
see it that way, versus our
Yes.
friend who's a serial husband.
Serial monogamous.
Yeah, who clearly is not learning very much along the way. But so don't be like our friend there. But
Don't be like friend.
and this might be super fresh, but I know you know the importance of this. Talk to me about forgiveness
Mm.
as a part of moving on.
Woo, forgiveness. Oh my goodness. It's so important. It's so important. First of all, to forgive yourself.
Mm,
Extend yourself a little grace. All too often, we don't like to acknowledge it, but we give people our best because we see potential.
mm-hmm.
And we don't really face the reality of what we're getting involved with. Or we face the reality, but because we see the potential, we still invest all of ourselves and we give our all now because we see that potential. And so when things don't work out, there's that embarrassment, there's the humiliation, there is the frustration, there are all these things we feel, and we want to really deflect, but we need to own that we probably saw more in the beginning than we care to acknowledge. And so owning that piece, the next step becomes forgiving ourselves for that. It's okay that you saw the best in someone and believed that they would aspire to their best selves. It's okay that you had hopes and dreams that this complicated situation would be able to work out despite the complications and the issues and all the people involved. You know, it's okay that you made that choice. You made the best possible decision based on what you believe to be true in the moment. And now that you're in a different space, a different frame of mind, you've learned some things, it's okay to say to yourself, you know what, I forgive you for making that choice. And the choice that you made, I still was able to grow from. So I don't resent any part of you. And when I say you, I'm talking about this is self-talk. This is internal talk. So I don't resent any part of me that allowed me to make the decisions that I made that led to the situation where I'm finding myself now, coming out of and working through. So I forgive myself for that. And I've learned and I've grown, and I will carry forward that same softness and femininity and heart that I had then, but I'll add to it the wisdom of my, right? Yes. That I'll add to it the wisdom of my experiences so that I'll move forward with a little more grace. And so once I work through that, now I can work on forgiving the person that I was with. Because when we can own our shortcomings, it becomes a whole lot easier to be able to identify the person's shortcomings as well. So that it becomes less about their attacks and more about the why you experienced them the way that you did. Mm-hmm. So you receiving grace for yourself helps you to give it a little bit more, a little bit easier.
So, I love that. I love that. So forgiving yourself first, and then moving to the place where you can then forgive them for anything so that you can ultimately move on.
Yes.
Excellent. I have nothing to add to that, although I could feel like we'd be here for 2 hours if I started talking about it.
So touching on some of that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because that was loaded.
Yeah, I know. Yes. But forgiving and then moving on. I think that's so good. I hope you enjoyed this episode chatting with my friend Corrida Greene. We have so many more episodes lined up and can't wait for you to come back and hear more from our conversations about being in that 40-ish 40-year-old grown woman space and what's involved when you're in a failed relationship. How do you move on? So be sure to check out the next episodes coming up. I am your 40-year-old bride, Andrea TheoJohn. So happy to be here with you. You can follow me at Andrea TheoJohn. That's like Theodore Johnson, which is my hubby's middle and last name. Andrea TheoJohn on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are. And that's also on TikTok, actually. You can also check us out at 40yearoldbride.com, where you can get all the tips on dating, engagement, relationships, all that good stuff. Again, disclaimer, I'm not a relationship counselor. I'm just a lady who was looking for more 40-plus-year-old content about this world of love and marriage and relationships that we all want to know more about. So thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time.